After 40 appearances for his local team and 16 goals, Ibrahimovic makes the big move, and he moves to Ajax, which is one, especially in the early 2000s, like a huge club to move to. And he is their record signing for 9 million, whatever money we were using at the time, or they were using at the time, in the Netherlands. So an interesting thing in the documentary is that they say that the Cruyff Arena in Amsterdam is a bit like a theater, right? People go there to make sure that the team is playing well. They don't go there to push the team. They just want to have an eye on that and say, yeah, they're playing well. I can go back home and sleep. They don't usually scream. They don't clap that much. They are observers. And when I heard that, I was like, I don't think this is quite the right fit for Ibrahimovic.
But then they said that, and so he gets off to a pretty rough start in Amsterdam. He isn't scoring. He doesn't really play much that first season. They go on to win the Eredivisie, and you can see the whole time that Zlatan is not happy. He's not playing. He doesn't feel part of the squad. But then the second season, he starts to come through. But they said that about the fans being observers, but they were pretty quick to whistle him and boo him. And I feel like Ajax fans, there's definitely a lot of passion there. And when you've got passionate fans and someone who is so headstrong about himself, it's only going to kind of go one way. But this is the first time that we really meet or see anything about Zlatan's dad. And I think this is another part of his personality. Now, I don't know if you noticed it, Tommy, but in that photo of Zlatan, his dad, and Mido, his dad looks absolutely terrifying.
Oh, I know. And that's the bit where they say that Mido, actually, whom we're going to talk about now, Egyptian star, the first Egyptian to make it out of Egypt in European football, like the early Mohamed Salah, we could say. So there is a great picture. They're all looking super young and happy. Ibrahimovic and Mido. Ibrahimovic's father doesn't look like that in the middle. And Mido said that his father was not very happy that Ibrahimovic chose to have the name Zlatan on the back of his shirt instead of Ibrahimovic. And I was like, wow, this is something about the roots, isn't it? Like you feel like your son is ashamed of his roots and he'd rather have like his first name rather than his last name.
I feel like you kind of get this with like descendants of immigrants or first generation. Like, so Zlatan would have been first generation Swedish, right? His dad would have been so proud of his roots. So you get this with kind of like immigrant families. But the thing that stood out about his dad was that when Zlatan says that no matter how I play, no matter how many goals I score, my dad always says you didn't play well enough. And I think this is part of the drive that feeds Zlatan, is him wanting to show the world and at the same time his dad that he's good enough, right? He's constantly trying to prove to people that he's good enough. And again, I think this feeds into being the child of an immigrant, or being an immigrant, growing up in a country where potentially you're not that welcome, where potentially people are putting you down. Of course, you want to turn around to him and stick the middle finger up and say, I told you I'm fucking good enough, right? And I think that's another part that explains a bit the attitude and the personality of Zlatan. But Christ, if he was my dad, oh my God, he looks so fucking scary. He's obviously grown, he's lived in like a war zone as well. Like that guy, he's seen things, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and what we actually, of course, Roy and I are in touch the entire week, but we both found particularly interesting the part where Mido speaks, and especially when Van der Meijde speaks. Van der Meijde really sounds like one of the few Dutch players at Ajax back then who was friends with Ibrahimovic, because apparently there was a big Dutch clique, and then Mido and Ibrahimovic really became friends, and it feels like Van der Meijde was the only Dutch one who really tried to make a connection with him. And he said, just like my father had problems with gambling, Ibrahimovic's dad had problems with alcohol, and that was something that we had in common, and we bonded over. That was kind of sad to see. You know, we see all these footballers, and you tend to think, wow, they make so much money, they live such a good lifestyle. You never really think about their background. I think that Ibrahimovic has sort of like a chip on his shoulder, like, I want to be better than that. I want to do something good for myself and for the world, for the fans.
But also there's a part of his lifestyle, especially when he first gets to Ajax, that doesn't sound that glamorous at all. Like the players are saying, I think it's Van der Meijden or Mido is one of them, who says his life was going to training, then he'd go back to his small house on the outskirts of Amsterdam and play PlayStation on his own and repeat and repeat and repeat. He was too famous to go out and enjoy Amsterdam and then not successful enough on the pitch to be happy with his career. Like, so I feel like there's also like money isn't everything, right? And I feel like you could definitely find yourself in a dark place. Well, we know this now. You can find yourself in a dark place no matter how much you get paid. And I feel like his start to life in Amsterdam was actually pretty rough. And the characters of Van der Meijden and Mido, as I'm sure they are great friends, they could have been very bad influences on Zlatan.
Right. And the other thing that I was thinking, how much 20 years make a difference? So Zlatan transferred to Ajax in 2001. No social media, no Instagram, no phone. Once you're home on your own, you've got a telly, you've got your books, you've got a phone, and that's it. Like,
but a phone that like you can talk on, and that's it. Like,
you can talk on it, play Snake 2 probably, and try to beat your personal record, but that's it. So in the end, Zlatan didn't end up like Mido, whom unfortunately in the documentary, he comes out off as a great, great person, like a very good guy. Mm-hmm. But you know, those types of people that have kind of been through it all. Like Mido was one of the rising stars in world football and then never really accomplished anything.
He just loved a party. You can tell straight away that you're like, that guy loved a nightclub. That guy loved a VIP section in an Amsterdam nightclub.
The first person from your country to make it in European football. That's kind of huge.
Well, there's that bit where he says, when I played a game, the whole of Egypt was watching. Like, when I play a game, it's not just Ajax fans watching, it's a country watching, and they're not watching Ajax, they're watching Mido. Like, that is a lot of pressure. But
that's what Salah said. I don't know when it was exactly, but he got to meet Mido, and he was like, Mido was excited to meet me, but really I was really excited to meet Mido. It was like, dude, I am excited. No, I am excited. Okay, we are the two coolest Egyptians to ever play football. But this takes us to 2004-2005, when Ibra transfers to Juventus. But before the transfer, there is quite an interesting story with then Ajax captain
Van der Vaart. So, well, Ajax, Zlatan, towards the end of his time at Ajax, it starts to turn a bit sour. He gets into a fight with Mido, right? And then, like, Mido, again, showing how good a person he is, just kind of goes, yeah, we're both kind of idiots and we just let each other off with it. But then Zlatan eventually ends up in a fight with someone who he can't really win because the Ajax fans might love him a little bit more than they love Zlatan. And that is Van der Vaart. So in a friendly, I believe it's a friendly, Sweden play Holland, or it's a qualifier. Sweden play Holland. Ibrahimovic is on the edge of the box. Van der Vaart tries to win the ball, but what Zlatan does... Now, Van der Vaart tries to win the ball. He's within 5 foot of Zlatan. And what Zlatan does is throw a foot out and jams his studs into the ankle of Van der Vaart, injuring him for... It was a bad tackle, man. And it was completely, like, unprovoked. Like, Van der Vaart was not near him. Like, he was kind of putting on pressure, but that was it. And Zlatan just throws his foot out. Van der Vaart goes down and he's injured for a few games. Zlatan then returns to Amsterdam and they are playing now. I can't remember. I think it's Zwolle or FC Twente. I can't remember. But guys, you know the Ibra goal that's about to come up. So,
and we're going to play the commentary right now.
Ibrahimovic. Goed ingehouden. En nu dan een keer schiet ook. Maradona, Zidane, zij kunnen het en Ibrahimovic ook.
So, at the beginning of the game, the Ajax fans are booing him. And of course, Ibra, I think he scores 2 goals that game or a hat-trick. And the crowning glory is that goal. Every time I watch this goal, I always forget the last dummy. There's always one more dummy than I remember. Always. Every time I see it.
It's a Maradona-like goal. Yeah, it's incredible.
that last one where the defender slides past him and he sticks it over the goalkeeper is fucking beautiful. And that, again, is Zlatan's personality. People are booing him. They hate him. And he's in his head, he is saying, I am going to make you applaud me off the pitch.
Right. And that's also Ajax. Why is it such an important chapter for Ibrahimovic? Because in Amsterdam, he meets a former pizzaiolo, a former pizza maker, son of Italian immigrants, who's got a lot of hair on his belly, we say in Italian, to say somebody who really has no shame, and his name is Mino Raiola. We already mentioned him in the podcast today. He's Gianluigi Donnarumma's agent. He's the agent of so many football players. He's like the epitome of the modern football agent, which is often a synonym of a horrible person.
Yeah, but I think he kind of symbolizes everything that's wrong with the game.
But I think that Mino Raiola was Ibrahimovic's biggest luck, and Ibrahimovic was Mino Raiola's biggest luck. They found each other. They created this great partnership that eventually saw Ibrahimovic take a plane or a blimp all the way to Turin in the 2004-2005 season. Now imagine this, you're coming from Malmo, son of immigrants, you go to Ajax, you play 4 seasons there, scoring 35 goals in 74 games. Wow. And like that, bam, it took 3 years, 4 seasons at Ajax to end up at one of the biggest clubs in the world, Juventus in Italy. This is 2004, and he lands at the Italian champions' house.
And we just need to quickly say, this is where the documentary leaves us, right? So the documentary takes us to his first year in Turin, I want to say, and it shows us them winning the Scudetto. And then my favorite bit of the documentary is absolutely brilliant. They're about to announce him onto the pitch when they've won the league. And there's a woman for a split second who stood in the wrong place. And she walks out the tunnel and someone goes, get the fuck out of the way. And her face is absolutely brilliant. It's the best part of the documentary. Oh, it's brilliant. It's so funny. And then Zlatan's like looking at her and then he kind of strides onto the pitch. But even that first season in Turin, obviously I didn't watch that much Serie A at the time, but it seemed like he had an immediate impact in that team. And that was a great Juventus team, even though it eventually turned out to be Calciopoli, etc., etc. It was a very great Juventus team, right?
I mean, Gianluigi Buffon, Paolo Montero, Gianluca Pessotto, Emerson at midfield, Il Puma, Zlatan Ibrahimovic himself, club captain Alessandro Del Piero, Ballon d'Or winner Pavel Nedved, Mark Giuliano, Mauro Camoranesi, David Trezeguet. I mean, I feel like Ibrahimovic must have been, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to win something and win it right away.
And to go quickly back to the beginning of the documentary, he does say at the beginning, when he's talking to his Malmo teammate, the guy asks him, where do you want to go? And he says, Italy. He says, I want to play in Italy. And he says, what about England? And he said, English football is shit, which I did really enjoy. But even from that early beginning, he knew exactly where he wanted to be. He wanted to be in Italy. He wanted to be playing for Juventus. And that's what he did.
And he did. And he got to Italy in 2004. And he won right away 2 titles that then, unfortunately, were revoked by the Italian court system. So he actually didn't win them, but he did. In his first season, he scored 16 goals in 35 games. His second season wasn't quite as good. He only scored 7. And that was when I remember Juventus fans saying, this guy is good, but oh, the goals he misses. However, when in 2006, Juventus are found guilty of everything that you can be found guilty for when you talk about cheating, a few club legends like Gianluigi Buffon, I believe Paolo Cannavaro, they decide to stay at Juventus. No, actually, Cannavaro went to Real Madrid. Yeah, he had won the Ballon d'Or. But yeah, what am I talking about? Del Piero, Buffon, they both decide to go to Serie B with Juventus. Do you think you can keep somebody like Patrick Vieira? Do you think you can keep somebody like Zlatan Ibrahimovic? Let's go to the team that has actually won, Inter Milan. And this takes us to the 2006-2007 season, one of the big names that made the divide, that crossed the divide between Juventus and Inter Milan. And this, I want to say, is when Ibrahimovic becomes the Ibrahimovic that we know to this day. He becomes a leader. He becomes very vocal.